Hi, my name is Hildegard Titus, and I'm a decolonial activist based here in Windhoek. In June of 2020, I started a petition called the Curt Farewell, which ultimately is a protest advocating for the removal of the Curt von François statue, which is standing in front of the city of Windhoek. The idea behind the petition was I thought it was important to have a contextualization of why this statue was put up in the first place, and also I believed that it's better to have that statue removed and taken to the Windhoek City Museum instead of having it stand where it currently stands, which was ultimately put up as a form of white supremacy and and upholding white colonial values. The statue was erected in 1965 by the majority white and German community, and ultimately this was meant to symbolize the founding of Windhoek, disregarding the fact that the city was actually founded decades before Curt von François ever set foot in Namibia by Orlando Jonge Afrikaner. And I think by, claiming that von François founded Windhoek is kind of whitewashing Windhoek's history and Namibia's history as a whole. And also the statue being put up, a few years after the old location forced removals, again, is just kind of, showing why they valued the statue and they valued this symbolism of whiteness and symbolism of whitening the city. So with the old location removals, the black population was moved from, not the center of town, but close to the center of town, to the outskirts of town, because the apartheid government wanted to make more space for the growing white population of the city, and they also wanted to be able to control the black population and to control their movements. They saw the introduction of the pass systems and a lot of other very rigorous and inhumane treatments towards the black population of Windhoek. And I think while we can't change history and we can't change what's been, I think it's important for us to contextualize it for ourselves and for future generations to understand the complexities of our history and understand that a statue isn't just a statue, it's a symbol, and it's a symbol of, a time's ideas and values. And I think it's problematic in a city which has such a high GBV and sexual-based violence problem to have a statue that honors a man who essentially massacred women and children at the massacre of Hornkrantz in April 1893. I think that there are lots of statues and monuments and street names around Windhoek and the country as a whole that do symbolize and do glorify this very violent colonial history. They tend to glorify the aggressors and completely erase the history of the victims, the majority of whom were black. And I think by creating exhibitions, creating public art, creating public outdoor exhibitions and public discussions like we've been doing with the Curt Farewell petition is kind of a way to ensure that we increase the consciousness around our history and make sure that history doesn't repeat itself, but also understand that, if we're going to move forward as a nation, and if we're going to be able to tackle these systems and racism and classism and sexism, gender-based violence that we see in the country today, we have to look at where it all started. Ultimately, I think it's not enough to remove statues. I think it's important to contextualize statues, to house them in spaces like museums that can contextualize our history and can help people learn more about the past, but also understand how the past has affected us where we are today. Till this day, Katutura is still a majority black neighborhood, and that is a direct, consequence of the forced removals. When you look at the majority of the wealth is still in white hands, which again is a direct consequence of colonialism and the apartheid system. So yeah, I think that we can't change history, but we can change our future. And part of changing our future is, contextualizing it and memorializing it in an accurate way, and also using the lessons from the past to ensure that we continue to protect the dignity of all people, regardless of their skin color, and also break down these systems that have allowed white supremacy, racism, sexism, and gender-based violence to flourish.